Good evening, everyone. My name is Elizabeth, the Education Coordinator for Marlene's Market and Deli. Tonight's special guests that we have with us, they are local licensed marriage and family therapists here in the Pacific Northwest. We have Briana Pontious and Nicole Stack, and they have a wonderful presentation in store for us this evening. There will be some prompts, so if you are watching live on Facebook, definitely enter in any of those prompts, or if you have any questions. And they are speaking on the topic tonight of self-compassion. Thank you so much, ladies, for your time this evening and sharing your expertise.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm going to share my screen here. Okay. Briana, can you see that?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay. Well, hopefully that's not in the way. Okay. So thank you for being here, everyone. Today we are going to present on understanding and implementing self-compassion.
Yeah, so just to start with introductions, my name's Briana Pontious. Like Elizabeth said, I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist associate. I work with individuals, couples, and families, specializing in anxiety and stress, relationship issues, life changes and transitions, and self-worth and empowerment work. I own Choosing Change Therapy, and there is my my contact information listed on the screen.
And I'm Nicole Stack. I'm also a licensed marriage and family therapist associate, and I specialize in grief, helping folks set boundaries with others, empowering them, and relationship issues. I also work with individuals, couples, and families. And while I do own a private practice, Hopeful Conversations, I'm currently putting that on pause to focus on my work at a group private practice in University Place, where I take a variety of insurances. So if you're interested in seeking a therapist through me as well, you can contact that hopefulconversations@gmail.com below. Okay. So first I want to start with letting you all know that we will have a few opportunities for everyone to participate. If you want to put things in the chat box, then Briana can read those off because I can't see that while I'm sharing. But this first slide here is the self-compassion quiz. Hopefully you had a chance to complete that. It's about 26 questions, and it'll just give you a basis for where you are at as far as how much self-compassion you practice. If you haven't filled that out, it's not a big concern. You can always do that now, or since we'll be continuing, you can always do it at the end of the presentation as well. And we just encourage you to take that again in a month or so to see how you compare to now.
Yeah. So just to kind of get started, we figured we would talk about some myths about self-compassion, and we kind of wanted to get you guys, the audience, involved. So if you guys have any ideas or any like myths that you've heard or things like that that you can add into the chat box right now, just add those and we can kind of call them out, and then Nicole and I will go over a few specifics. Mm. Yeah, I'm seeing someone put it's selfish to put yourself first. Yeah, that's definitely one that we're gonna go over.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Can you guys think of any more? Otherwise, we can definitely start.
I know it's kind of hard thinking about self-compassion. It's like we've all heard of it, but we never really thought about necessarily the definition or anything. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well maybe we can just give some of those or some examples then.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. So here we have a few examples. I'm going to go over the first two. So the first one is that self-compassion it's not self-pity, or that it is self-pity. That's the myth, right? So self-pity actually separates us from others as if we're the only ones suffering, whereas self-compassion is balanced and objective versus self-pity, which is focused on emotional drama in one's life. The second one there, self-esteem. So it is not self-esteem. Self-esteem refers to our sense of self-worth, perceived value, and how much we like ourselves. In our culture, we tend to compare ourselves with others, especially on social media, causing us to dip low in self-esteem, fearing we're not unique or special in any way, resulting in us trying to hide qualities we consider shortcomings or flaws. We also tend to base our self-esteem on our latest success, which can also raise or lower our self-esteem.
Yeah. Another myth about self-compassion is it's a form of weakness. Culturally, we're often taught that we need to be tough or strong and not dwell on or show our feelings. This is actually a really harmful belief. Research has found that having self-compassion is actually a great source of strength, and it improves our ability to cope, be resilient, and get through difficulties in life. By practicing self-compassion, we're being an ally to ourselves rather than an enemy. Another myth about self-compassion is that it's selfish, that one that was shared by someone else. This belief often happens with those who emphasize the importance of caring for or providing service to others. So these are often like the caretakers, the nurturers, and oftentimes among cultures, many cultures, it's women in general. There's a belief that you can't spend any time or energy on yourself, otherwise you're being selfish. Unfortunately, these beliefs only hurt you. I want to be very clear, self-compassion is not selfish. It's even been found to be the opposite. When we take the time to practice kindness and compassion for ourselves, we help ensure our emotional needs are met, allowing us to continue giving and caring for others from a healthy and fulfilled place.
Okay, so this next slide, we wanted to just define what exactly is self-compassion. Like I said earlier, we have all heard of it, but we haven't necessarily always figured out kind of or looked up what the definition is. So Briana will help us with that.
Yeah. So as you can see here, it's the act of kindly and caringly responding to our own suffering. Sometimes it's easier to define self-compassion by starting with just simply defining compassion. Compassion is the response and reaction to seeing others experience pain. To have compassion for someone, we have to see their pain and acknowledge it from a kind, caring, and supportive place. Therefore, self-compassion is, like I said, the act of caring and responding to our own suffering and pain. Self-compassion is a way to relate to ourselves with kindness and acceptance, even during times we feel inadequate. It's the practice of acknowledging we're human and we're imperfect, and that's okay. Self-compassion is a way to support, care for, and comfort ourselves internally. Sometimes the act of self-compassion can get confused with self-care. To act with self-compassion is to have understanding and kindness for your own thoughts, beliefs, actions, and mistakes. It's like saying, oops, I made a mistake, but I'm human. No one is 100% perfect 100% of the time. Self-care is the idea of doing things to take care of your needs, feelings, or wants. It's saying, I'm overwhelmed, so I'm going to take a break. Self-compassion is more internal and a way of interacting with ourselves without judgment. Self-care is an external support, while self-compassion is an internal mindset of support.
Okay, so again, we wanted your participation, if you didn't mind. If you could think of anything, why do you think self-compassion is important? Do you want to put that in the chat box, and then Briana can look at your different answers. She can read those aloud. Why do you think self-compassion is important?
Okay, yeah, I see. It helps to have our cup overflowed in order to be there for others. That's very true. That kind of like taking care of yourself first, and then you can take care of others. Because if you're pouring from an empty cup, there's nothing left to pour. I'm seeing somebody else said longevity, a happier, more fulfilling life. Yes, that is very true. Self-compassion definitely does that. Oh, let's see. Someone else said, I didn't realize self-care was different from self-compassion. I think it's important that self-compassion is accepting our thoughts as valid. It brings us back to reality when we make up scenarios in our head about our thoughts. Yeah, that is very
So great.
true.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you
yeah,
guys. Yeah.
yeah. Thank you so much. Oh, I'm
Okay.
seeing another one. You
Oh,
need to
go
be
ahead.
able to be aware and acknowledge your error and learn from it and grow. Yeah. Yeah, these are all really great answers. Just to kind of like reiterate and expand on that, self-compassion is important because how we talk to ourselves and how we relate to ourselves is important. It can affect the way we live and our overall wellness. Self-compassion allows us to survive and even thrive in the face of adversity. It has many benefits on our mental and physical health.
Yeah. Okay. So next we're going to go over the three elements of self-compassion, and these include self-kindness versus self-judgment, common humanity versus isolation, and mindfulness versus over-identification.
Yes. So, starting with that first one, it's a huge element of self-compassion, the self-compassion, kindness versus self-judgment. When we practice self-compassion, we're automatically practicing self-kindness, which is being warm and understanding to ourselves when we feel negatively about ourselves. This is the opposite of self-judgment, which usually brings self-criticism or ignoring our pain altogether. With self-kindness, there's an understanding that we're not perfect and we can therefore be gentler to ourselves when something painful or disappointing happens. When we can accept reality rather than fighting against it, we can move forward with ease.
So, as we've stated previously, life has many ups and downs, including failures. It's how we learn. Self kindness is to show ourselves a warm response in the face of failure, suffering, or feeling inadequate, like when we compare ourselves to others. Not accepting life in this way only sets us up for stress, frustration, and self criticism. Instead, with self kindness, we recognize our unique qualities as good and not bad, accepting our authentic selves.
Yeah. Another important element of self-compassion is the idea of common humanity. This is the understanding that what you're going through, whatever the suffering, mistake, or disappointment is, it's something others have gone through as well. Yes, our unique situations are all personal, they're our own, but from a bigger picture level, all humans experience suffering, mistakes, and disappointments. These are experiences that are a part of being human. Self-compassion allows us to understand that this problem is not a personal inadequacy. It's something that happens to everyone, as we all share in this common humanity. Being able to experience our lows as a part of a larger community can help make us feel less isolated, and therefore it's easier to have compassion for ourselves.
And finally, mindfulness versus over identification. As mentioned earlier, there's a balance to self compassion. We're not suppressing our emotions or exaggerating them. Rather, we're seeing the bigger picture of our challenges with perspective. When we are in a mindful state, we're viewing and feeling our emotions as they come. They're not permanent. We feel them and let them pass. It's impossible to ignore our pain and have compassion for ourselves. And we should also not get carried away with our more challenging thoughts and emotions. Try giving your more difficult emotions 90 seconds to be with you. Hear what they're trying to tell you. For example, that a boundary has been crossed and that you need validation.
So now I can cover some benefits of self-compassion. There are so many benefits to practicing self-compassion, so here are just a few. As noted before, self-compassion has positive impacts on your physical, mental, and emotional health. It can help us feel supported at all times because the support comes from within. It helps act as a motivator and strengthens our accountability within ourselves. It helps us to survive, process, and thrive in adverse and difficult times. Self-compassion also expands our capacity for love, wisdom, and courage. It's just an amazing practice to do for yourself and can make us happier overall.
Okay, so here we've listed several different ways to practice self-compassion, and I'm going to talk about a few of them that I personally felt were ones I'm trying to practice or ones that I feel like are really important, or that I've learned for sure. Like mindfulness, that's what I'm trying to practice. It's a slow but steady progress. Becoming more aware of your breath and emotions, you can gain a better understanding of what's going on inside without judgment. This next one is a big one. It's one that I often talk about with clients in session, is saying no instead of having those people pleasing tendencies, which usually comes from something probably in our childhood. We often say yes just to people please when really we should just be saying no, and that's okay. No is a complete sentence on its own. You don't need a reason. The next one is asking for help. So maybe, you're trying to do something, you've been taught independence, but it's also okay to lean on others for help. Writing a letter, giving yourself encouragement, accepting that struggle and even failure are normal. It's just how we learn, as we mentioned before. And finally, taking a well-deserved break, having a glass of water, having a healthy snack, getting fresh air.
Yeah, those are some great ways to practice self-compassion. So here we're going to go over some tips and reminders to practicing self-compassion. So self-compassion is the practice of supporting ourselves during our lows. It's not a feeling and it's not a way to make the pain disappear. Self-compassion shouldn't be used to suppress our lows or fight against them. It's the practice of accepting and embracing the pain, then responding to ourselves with caring, kindness, and support. This allows us to experience the moment and then move forward. Sometimes while practicing, the pain can even increase at first. This can happen when we acknowledge pain in general, but remembering that self-compassion ultimately helps us feel supported and helps us to heal. And then lastly, self-compassion allows us to recognize and understand what we need in the moment of our pain. This could mean to push deeper and process through the feelings, or it could mean recognizing that we're overwhelmed with emotions and we need to just take a step back and focus on self-care instead.
Yeah. Okay. So for this next slide, we wanted to end this presentation with a guided self-compassion exercise, or at least a couple of them for you guys to do that we will guide you through. So if you could, in the chat, maybe do your top 2 self-compassion exercises that you'd like us to walk you through. And then Briana will take a look to see which are the top 2 most voted, and we will go through those with you. So the first one is taking care of the caregiver. As we know, if you're a caregiver and you're not taking care of yourself, you're, going to get to the point where maybe you're not able to help your loved one. Second one is exploring self-compassion through writing. Putting things out of your mind onto paper can really help ease like anxiety and depression. Number 3 is changing your critical self-talk. A lot of times what we say to ourselves, we really feel our body is listening. And then the fourth one is identifying what we really want. Like kind of going back to the people-pleasing tendencies. What do we also need? What do we want? And making room for that. And that's okay. So feel free to put in the chat which top 2 you would like us to walk you through. And Briana will let me know.
Okay, I'm seeing 4, 3 and 4.
Those are big ones. That makes sense.
Oh, lots of 3 and 4s. Okay. Um, yeah, so 3 and 4 again. Okay. Yeah. All right. Let's see. Everyone said and, so I'm not seeing a tough one between those two.
Well, and what we can also do too is when we send this out to everybody, Brianna, we can also put the notes in for 1 and 2 just in case you want to look at it. Not a
Yeah,
big deal.
that's a good idea.
No pressure.
Oh, and I am seeing a vote for 1 as well. Taking
Woohoo!
care of the caregiver. That's also something earlier in the chat I had missed it, but someone said so many people come before I have time to get to me. So I do think that one would be really helpful as well.
Well, we do have time if you want to. We can also read that one.
Okay, yeah.
Sure.
Let's see. Okay, let's start with we'll just start with 3 then.
Okay.
Changing the critical self-talk. So that's one that I'm going to guide you all through. And then I'm seeing questions for the quiz, Nicole. Oh, no, you can't see the chat. I will grab that in a second.
Okay.
Okay. Um, okay, so to get started, I'm going to ask everyone to close their eyes. If you do want to take notes about what comes up for you, that's okay as well, but it can be nice to kind of just sit and be in your brain for a little bit. So with your eyes closed, think about a time when you were critical of yourself. Maybe it's a time you made a mistake or let someone else down, or maybe even let yourself down. Anytime when you are feeling bad about something, what did you say to yourself? What words did you use when you were being critical of yourself? Are there words or phrases you notice repeating? What was the tone of this critical voice? Does this voice remind you of anyone? Does it sound like or repeat anyone who has criticized you before? In this practice, you want to really get to know this inner critic really, really well. You can give them a name even. You want to identify exactly where and when your inner critic is activated. Really think about how this inner critic talks to yourself. Now we can just sit with that inner critic for a second. Okay. Now imagine talking to your inner critic using that name that you just gave them, but talking to them from a compassionate manner. Don't yell at your inner self-critic. Have compassion for them and recognize why they're here. Maybe they're worried or they feel unsafe, so they want to do this to protect you. Now, this is where you can let them know that you understand how they're feeling, but that it's actually causing you pain. You can ask them to step aside and let your inner compassionate self speak. Now, think about what your inner compassionate self might say. Reframe the things your inner critic has said, but in a positive and kind way. If it's hard to imagine something compassionate to say to yourself, you can try imagining you're talking to a friend in the same situation. While thinking about what this inner compassionate self is saying, you can also gently hug or hold yourself. You can hold your hand or rub your arm. Physical care often releases oxytocin, the feel-good hormone, which helps change our biochemistry for the positive, leading to honest and real feelings of warmth and care. So while your inner compassionate self is taking care of you internally, that gentle hug or holding your hand is taking care of you externally. After sitting with this inner compassionate self, when you're feeling ready, you can open your eyes and we can just do a quick check-in before trying another exercise. So how is everyone feeling? You can add it in the chat if you feel comfortable, or these can just be inner dialogue thoughts. But I wonder, was it nice hearing what your inner compassionate self said? Maybe it was hard or it felt kind of uncomfortable talking to yourself compassionately. Just remembering that the more we practice self-compassion, the easier it does get. While you guys are kind of thinking about that, I'm going to grab that link really quickly. Okay, I'm seeing some comments, feeling better, have more understanding of why I got uh, self-critical or critical of myself and how to combat that. Yeah, self-compassion can definitely help um, combat some of these unhappy feelings.
Yeah, that really helps. When I was doing that, Brianna, I just wanted to share the the critical voice for many of my clients and for myself is someone we knew in the past. So for me, it was my mom, you know. So I
Yeah,
just named her mom. And but what was helping me, because it was hard for me to talk to her compassionately because I feel so hurt, but to imagine she was a friend, like you said, I thought of
yeah.
one of my best friends and just talked
Hmm.
to her how I would, and that was so much easier. And so I
Yeah,
think, yeah, with practice, I'll be able to have that even imaginary conversation with my mom, things I wish we had been able to talk about.
yeah, that's amazing. Um, I think it's important to remember that that critical self-talk can be so harmful. And so being able to take the time to acknowledge it and kind of reverse it and work through how you can be compassionate instead. Eventually, as you continue practicing, that critical self-talk will just get less and less. So you just have that compassionate voice in your head instead. And I did go ahead and add that link to the quiz if anyone hasn't gotten it yet. No, thank you. Oh, I'm seeing a question. Is it always harmful? I think that's a tough question.
I feel like
Um,
I would have to add more context on that. That's interesting.
yeah, yeah. One of the things I did say is with that inner critic, sometimes they are trying to maybe be protective because they're feeling worried or unsafe. So I think you can use that inner critic as maybe like a warning sign and then be able to respond more compassionately. The harmful part comes from constantly listening to that inner critic, like put you down and cause you pain. That's where it gets harmful.
Yeah. Interestingly, you bring up a good point with that question and then your answer, Brianna. There's a model of therapy called internal family systems. If you've ever seen the movie Inside Out, I think it's like Disney Pixar or something, and it's about this kid Riley and then all the different emotions like joy, anger, disgust, and fear. That is a way that you can talk to those emotions um, in a compassionate way, even those challenging ones, and see them as more protectors, people, or parts that are trying to help you. So like maybe you do have an anxious part or a self-critical part. And then it's like, okay, what does this part really want me to know? When did you start? When did your role begin? And oftentimes we find that it's in childhood. Um, when we take this presentation down, I'll put a good book on internal family systems in the chat. It's called No Bad Parts by Richard Schwartz. He's the one who came up with internal family systems. And that's a great one for everyone to read, not just professionals, but for also clients and everything. Very easy to understand. And that's a great model to help you understand how to change that critical self-talk.
Yeah, yeah, that sounds really great. I'd like to read that book too.
I have it, you can
I'm
borrow it.
I'm seeing another in the chat. When you mentioned that movie, they love that movie. They really identified with it when it came out.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Does anyone have any other thoughts or wants to mention about how this exercise affected them or what they kind of went through with it? Otherwise, we can switch to the next one.
Think we got a thumbs up for the next one, maybe?
Oh, perfect. Okay. Okay. I'm seeing, okay, so the next one, number 4, identifying what we really want. That one does explore a little bit more this critical voice. So I think they go really well together. They complement each other. Okay, so if everyone is ready, I would recommend grabbing either like a pen and paper or having like your notes app open or something where you can just jot down a few notes. Um, and I'll ask that you guys write down your top 3 or so things that you criticize yourself about. It can be something that you attribute as a personal trait, such as like I'm lazy or I'm impulsive, those types of things that we say about ourselves that are maybe not the kindest. I'll give you a second to think about and jot those down. Okay. So even if you just have one, that's okay. Um, so now I want to ask you, do you think being hard on yourself will help you change? Like, is saying these mean things to ourselves, is that gonna magically be like, oh yeah, I need to fix that. Suddenly I'm not lazy or impulsive? Because I would guess not. Um, I I wonder with that if you're thinking there's gonna be some change. I want you to think about maybe the emotional pain this self-criticism is causing. So if anything is coming up, you can jot those down as well. But when you hear these criticisms that you give yourself, is there a pain that comes with it? Like, does it hurt or is it harmful hearing some of these words? Um, looking at this pain that comes up, I want you to take a second and put on your compassionate voice and give yourself a minute just to feel compassion for feeling so judged. Maybe leaning into that self kindness instead of self judgment, one of the key elements of self compassion, and recognizing that we're not perfect and it's okay. So once you hear that and your self compassion is talking again, um, let me ask, are you tired of using criticism as a motivator? My guess would be yes. Tired of experiencing the emotional pain it might cause. So let's see if we can think of a kinder, more caring way to motivate yourself to make change instead. Sometimes this is easier again by thinking about language we would use with a friend or thinking about what a wise and nurturing friend, caregiver, or mentor might say to you when gently pointing out a behavior that is unproductive, maybe, while also being encouraging to do something different. Think about the words that mentor or kind, nurturing friend would say to you, or you would say to someone else in that same position, and write those down under some of these words we already have. Now, in this new caring, kind mindset, I want you to think about all the things you could say and write down the most supportive message you can think of that's in line with your underlying wish to be happy and healthy. This message can support this change you're wanting, can bring motivation. It can just bring some caring and kindness to yourself. What you should have now is like at least one sentence of a supportive message you can give yourself. Um, and if anyone feels like sharing, I would love to read those in the chat as well so we can spread the support. Um, and then just as a reminder going forward, every time you catch yourself being judgmental about this unwanted trait in the future, I want you to first notice the pain of the self-judgment and give yourself self-compassion. Then try to reframe that inner dialogue as we did here and be more encouraging and supportive, remembering that love is a much more powerful motivator than fear. Okay, I'm going to look at the chat now, see what we've said. Oh, I see. I can be very indecisive or I'll have anxiety about what's the best choice. Yeah, that can be a really hard one to deal with. I see the supportive message is I am enough. That is amazing right there on its own. But I do see they added also, I'm learning each day in a new way to thrive in life with happiness and success. That's amazing. That's such a supportive and motivating and powerful message to tell yourself. I'm seeing another one, you can't succeed without failures. Yeah, that's amazing. That's acknowledging both parts, those difficult times, but understanding how are we going to move forward without those? Yeah, we can use some of these motivating messages and combined with that inner self-critic to figure out what we're trying to actually get. So that's the title of identifying what we really want. It's figuring out what we're wanting as the end goal to some of these messages that we're telling ourselves.
All
Okay.
right, did we want to do one?
Yeah.
Okay, so the number one was taking care of the caregiver. And that one, hold on a second. I was doing the thing, so okay. Taking care of the caregiver. So many of us are not only in jobs where, we're looking after people's needs in one way or another, but we also may be a caretaker for a loved one. While we have the best intentions, this can take a toll on us emotionally and physically. It's so important to practice self-care in order to be a good caretaker for your loved one. Practice self-compassion by reminding yourself you're doing your best with what you have. You can practice self-care by getting a massage, getting up or meeting up with a friend for tea, taking a bath, watching a funny movie, reading a book, like a favorite book. I was also kind of thinking about some of the things that we'd mentioned earlier, but instead of just saying yes to everything, asking for help. You're going to need help in those times. It's nearly impossible to do it all yourself and remain positive that whole time. It's taxing work. So reach out for help as you can.
Yeah. Yeah, I think adding on to that, acknowledging that it's okay that you can't do it all. Like that is how you're having compassion for yourself, is recognizing like I'm human. I can't do 100% of everything. So I do need help and that's okay.
All right.
I saw another message another motivating message pop in. It says, I need to keep reminding myself that I do enough and can't expect myself to do it all. So it goes right in there with that taking care of the caregiver.
Yeah. And very true. You know, if we were to tell a friend those things, why wouldn't we tell ourselves that? Why do we expect so much more? Why do we expect us to do it all? Yeah. And that's another good point. Why do we expect that? What is that where's that critical self-talk coming from? You know, did someone expect more from us when we were younger? Were we
Yeah.
criticized a lot? Yeah.
Yeah. And what happens when we can't do it all?
Mhm.
Like, then what?
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of people catastrophize, think of the worst case scenario, and 99% of the time, that's not what is going to happen.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right.
Yes. So, lastly, real quick, we did just want to give a shout out to Kristen Neff and the selfcompassion.org website. Kristen is a pioneer for self-compassion, and we really relied on her work heavily for this presentation today. If you guys are interested in learning more about self-compassion, taking that self-compassion quiz, or trying out any of her other guided practices, definitely check out that website, selfcompassion.org. You can get to it through the link to the quiz as well. And then we just wanted to thank everyone in the audience for watching and for interacting. That is so helpful, and we really wanted to bring others in. And we hope you were able to get something out of it, either some knowledge or maybe some good insights during those guided practices. If you have any questions, we'll ask that you please feel free to put them in the chat or raise your hand and we can call on you. As Nicole said earlier with that self-compassion quiz, if you weren't able to take it in the beginning, we recommend you do so now, because it's a fun way to just kind of gauge where you're at. And if you do continue practicing and then it kind of changes, you can see those changes with the quiz on where your rating is today versus in like a month or so. And then I think we've said, but we'll go ahead and put our contact information in the chat as well if anyone is interested in reaching out. I believe we both have some current availability for new
Mhm.
clients, and we both offer a free consultation to get to know each other. So if you're interested in getting started for anything in that as well, go ahead and please reach out, or if you have any more specific questions. Yeah, email, phone, text, all of those are good.
I'm going to stop sharing here for a second.
Perfect.
There we go.
Well, thank you so much, ladies, for that amazing, informative presentation. I know that it helped me kind of navigate some things that I hadn't really uh, had awareness about, and it was very tactful and wonderful. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And
Yeah.
thank you for having us again.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was really fun.
Yes, definitely. We'd love to have you back anytime.
Yeah.
Aw.
Nicole, can you see the chats now?
I can now. Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Everyone say thank you.
Yes.
Yay.
Thank you guys for being here. We appreciate it so much.
Yeah.
And
For your participation.
Yes.
yeah, it was a really really good group getting everyone involved in the chat box. I always love that. And folks, while we still have the presenters here, feel free to ask some questions if you got any comments. I think at this time I'm going to check the live stream here, see if we have any input. We do not, but we do have someone watching, so that's always wonderful. I'm going to end the live stream here, but open it up for the Zoom meeting folks, and we thank you so much for watching.